Today in our 2015 Kia Soul, we're going to be taking a look at and show you how to install the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX2726. So here's what our base plate looks like when it's fully installed. Now this is going to give us a secure attachment point so we can hook up our tow bar and safely flat tow our Soul down the road. Now the nice thing about this tow bar is it has removable arms, so if we pull this pin and rotate it, we can actually pull the arm out, giving it an inconspicuous look. That way we're not going to have any brackets protruding out. The sturdy, dependable design is going to evenly distribute the towing weight so that we're going to reduce the amount of weight that's put on our suspension. Our base plate is going to be constructed of steel with a nice black powder coat finish, so it is going to hide nicely and also resist rust and corrosion. To keep our base plate clean and to keep from dirt and debris from getting inside, they do provide us with some caps when we're not towing. The mount on the front of the tow bar here is going to be to mount your electrical connectors, which are sold separately. On the front, we're going to have two safety chain connection points. That way we can make sure that we're getting down the road safely and staying within the law. Our Blue Ox base plate is compatible with several different Blue Ox tow bars, as well as Roadmaster tow bars with an adapter which is sold separately. Our base plate is going to come with all the necessary hardware and instructions to get it installed, and it's not going to require any welding. Now that we've seen what it looks like and gone over some of the features, let's show you how to get it installed. To begin our installation, if we open up our hood, at the very edge of where our bumper meets our headlights, we're going to have a 10mm bolt towards the very front on each side. We're going to need to remove that. Now just towards the inside of where our engine is, we're going to have 5 push pin fasteners that we're going to have to remove. So you're going to want to take a Phillips head screwdriver and try not to put any pressure going down, but you're going to unscrew the center section of the clip, which will take the tension off. And once you have the tension taken off, you should be able to grab it and pull the rest of the clip out. Now we'll do that for the remaining other 4 clips. Where our fascia meets our fender, we're going to have a bolt holding it in place right there. I'm going to be using an 8mm socket to remove it. You're going to want to do that on both sides. If we move to the underside of our vehicle, right here along the front, right by the wheels, we're going to have 3 more push pin fasteners on each side, and then 2 in the center for a total of 8. Now we're going to need to remove all of those push pin fasteners, and we're going to do them the same way we did the ones with the top, where you unscrewed the center section, and we'll be able to pull out the rest of our clip. When you get ready to remove the fascia, you're going to want to come to the very bottom where it meets the fender. You're just going to gently start pulling away. You're going to release the clips. You're going to want to work your way towards the center. And you want to make sure you don't have any electrical connectors on the back of your fascia, and if you do, you want to make sure you disconnect them before you fully pull it away. Then you're going to find a safe spot to set this so it won't get damaged. Now on the top of our bumper beam here, we're going to have a wire with our ambient temperature sensor connected to it. I'm just going to take a trim panel tool and pop these clips out and disconnect the cable from the bumper itself. And we're going to set it aside for right now. On each side of our bumper, we're going to have 4 bolts holding it in place. I'm going to be using a 12mm socket to take them out. We'll do that on the other side as well. Now on each side, we're going to have a nut that's also holding it in place. I'm going to be using a 10mm socket to remove it. And we'll take the other one off on the other side as well. With all those removed, we can go ahead and pull the bumper beam off and set it aside. Now working on the driver's side, we're going to have our air baffle that's connected to our air box, and we're going to need to remove the 3 fasteners holding it in place. We're going to have 1 in the front here, and then in the back we're going to have 2. If we come to the wheel well liner, we look straight in, we'll see the first one, and then right underneath it, if we look up, will be the second one. I'm going to be using a 10mm socket to remove those. we're going to need to remove all the wiring that's attached to it. So just take a trim panel tool. I'm going to pop out these clips. And we can remove it and set it aside. Now right behind that air baffle, we're going to have two factory sets of grounds. We're going to need to relocate these grounds, so I'm going to be removing that bolt. And again, I'm going to be using a 10mm socket. I'm going to come back with a 1/4-inch drill, and right at this flange where we have a couple pieces of metal, I'm going to be drilling a hole so that we can relocate those grounds. I'm using a 1/4-inch drill bit. Just want to mention you want to be careful and not to push too hard and potentially damage anything behind here. Now we're going to take the 1/4-inch bolt that's supplied in our kit, and I'm going to come from the back side and feed that bolt through the hole I just drilled. Then I can take my grounds, place them over the bolt. It does come with a nylon lock nut, and that's what I'm going to be using to secure it. It may take a little bit of positioning to get the ground wires in place the way you want them. Just want to watch that bolt and make sure it doesn't fall out. I'm going to come back using a 7/16 wrench to hold the bolt on the back side, and a 7/16 socket. I'm going to tighten it all up. Now I marked out here on the passenger side where we're going to need to cut. We're going to go right below this tab, and we're going to cut over. And if we come right above this little tab, we're going to come over just to the inside of where that hole is, and we're going to go straight up, and we're going to be taking this entire section out. Now we're not only just taking the black off, we are going to be cutting that section of the frame. And if we move over to the driver's side, I already cut this side out, so when you're done, you want it to be flush with the frame right here and have this nice open spot. Now I'm going to be using a grinder with a cutoff wheel to cut off this area, and you can use a grinder like I am, or a reciprocating saw, or whatever you have. You just want to try to be as smooth and straight cutting lines as you can. So you're going to want to put your bumper beam back in place and just hold it there loosely. We're going to take a marker, we're going to mark that section that we cut out, and we're going to cut that out on the bumper beam as well. You're going to want to do that for both sides. We're going to need to trim the lower plastic section of our air dam here. So I marked a line of where we're going to be cutting, and all of this lower area is going to be coming out. I'm going to be using a Dremel tool with a cutting blade on it to cut it out, and you can use a razor knife or whatever you have because it is just plastic. To make it a little bit easier so we don't have to worry about damaging the radiator, if we reach behind here, there's a small clip that's holding it in place, and we're going to just work it off the clip, making it a little bit easier to cut. We'll do the same thing for this side as well. We're going to need to remove our washer bottle before we go any further. We're going to have two bolts holding it in place and one screw right in the front. We'll be using a 10mm socket to remove the bolts. One of them is going to be directly behind it, and the other one is going to be up and just right behind our fender there. So we're going to remove all the clips holding our wiring in place. You're going to want to come to the bottom where the plug is. Push in on that tab. Release the plug. We're going to slide our washer tank back. And very carefully pull it the rest of the way out, making sure There's no more wiring left, so we don't rip the wiring out. And we're just going to take our washer bottle. You're going to want to set it right next to the tire. We'll have just enough room to where it'll reach the ground. You want to take a Phillips screwdriver. You're going to want to grab a rather large one so it can make contact and grab real well. And you're going to want to remove that screw that was holding the front of the washer bottle in place. And it probably is going to be extremely tight because there is some paint on it and in the threads. Now I drew a line because we're going to want 4 1/4 inches from the face of our frame here to back here, and that's where the back side of our base plate is going to line up. So we're going to take our base plate and we're going to loosely put it in place. And you're going to want to grab yourself a clamp. And once you have that 4 1/4 spacing, you're going to want to clamp your base plate into place. After the base plate is clamped in place, you want to double check and make sure that it's nice and level and straight on your vehicle. Using a 13/32 drill bit, I'm going to drill out the top back hole and get ready to put my hardware in place. With the top back hole drilled, you're going to want to grab one of your 3/8 bolts and lock nuts. Take a little bit of Loctite, put a small amount on the bolt. Now if you need some, you can pick some up on our website using part number LT37420. Now we're going to be threading it from the outside, going through the hole, and we're going to be taking our handle nut and lining up from the inside and threading it in place. So you're going to want to take your handle nut, go through the front of the frame here, and line up as best you can until you can get the bolt threaded on. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other side as well. Here on the passenger side, we're going to have the same 3 remaining holes, but we're only going to be using the 2 front ones. We're not going to be using the back lower one just because of clearance issues with our washer bottle. On the driver's side, however, we are going to use the 3 remaining holes. So we're going to drill those out and repeat the same process we did for that 3/8 bolt. Once you have all your bolts in place, you can go ahead and remove your clamp. I'm going to come back with a 9/16 socket, and I'm going to torque all my hardware to the specified amount in the instructions. And we'll repeat that for the other side as well. Now that all of our bolts are torqued down, I'm going to come back using my Dremel tool with a cutoff blade, and I'm going to cut all the excess handles off of my handle nuts. And we're going to cut them off the other side too. So you're going to want to grab your bumper beam and put it back in place. And once it's up there, it should hold itself. We're going to go ahead and put the hardware back in place as well. We're going to loosely thread in the bolts so I can get all of it in place. Coming back with the 12mm socket, I'm going to snug up all the bolts holding my bumper beam in place. We're going to have one more hole we're going to need to drill, and we're going to be drilling through the bumper beam itself this time. Now that we have this hole drilled out, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Now again, we're just put a little bit of Loctite on our last 3/8 bolt, and then we're going to need to estimate about how much of our handle nut. This time it's going to be the nut with no plate on it. It's just going to be a flange nut. I'm going to bend it about how much I need. We're going to come in right there at the frame and hopefully be able to line it up so that we can get it threaded into place. It may just take a little bit of patience to get everything lined up. It may take a few tries. And come back with the 9/16 socket torque wrench. Torque these bolts down to the specified amount in the instructions. We'll do that for the other one as well. And we can come back and cut the excess handle off those handle nuts. So we can take our permanent safety cables now. I'm going to go over my bumper beam, over the frame, come around. That's going to meet up right here at this attachment tab. And so I'm going to take my included link, go around my safety cable, and then once you have both your cables on, so make sure you go around the frame and your base plate. Then we can secure it and thread it down. Now, a big thing is you don't want to have the cables rubbing any lines, AC lines, or anything like that. You want to make sure that they're not going to interfere with any moving parts either. And once it's all threaded and locked into place and we know it's in a good position, I come back with the 3/4 inch wrench and snug it up. Now that we have this one on, we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the passenger side. With our base plate torqued down and everything in place, now would be a good time, if you are doing wiring, to go ahead and at least run your wires while the fascia is off, making it a little bit easier to get where we need to go. So now we can work on getting everything back in place that we took apart earlier. Our washer bottle here, just want to put that screw back in place so it can help support it while we get the rest of our hardware. Now in our application, since where our base plate is sitting, we're not able to put that third bolt back in for our airbox. The two on their back are holding it just secure and fine. Now with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and get our fascia put back in place. So we'll make sure everything lines up, and if need to, go down below and help guide everything on. Now that we have our fascia back on, we can start replacing all the fasteners up top and underneath to hold it in place. Now with the clips, you want to make sure that the bottom section of the clip is fully pressed in. And once you have the bottom section pushed in, just want to push that center section in and lock it down. Put the screw back holding our bumper to the fender. And put our clips back underneath, those 3 on each side, and then the 2 in the center. Now the final thing we have to do is put the arms in place. Simply put them in as a spring-loaded part. Once it pushes in, we can rotate it and it'll lock it into place. We'll go ahead and do that for the other one as well. That'll finish up our look at the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX2726 on our 2015 Kia.
Thanks for watching. Click the link in our description below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com and leave a comment if you have any questions.